Hello, this is Warlord, and there's been a request for us to do a dress shirt and collar. So, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, let's get the basis of the shirt laid out. I'm going to go to my polygon tool, and we're just going to keep this very simple. Don't have to worry about exact proportions, since we can easily adjust things. Now, this is Marvelous Designer 9. I'm going to use one of the new tools where I select and unfold symmetry with sewing. Then I'm going to select that, Control C, and mirror paste it. And then we'll flip it horizontally, get the texture facing right, and move it to the back. And we'll move them up just a little bit, since there's not going to be that much sewing. Now let's see what we've got. Okay. Come in here to the back. Change it. Resimulate. It's a little bit short. Now if you just wanted to move one of these, you'd use the blue handle. You use the yellow handle to move everything you selected. And there's the basis for our shirt. Now let's just go ahead and jump to the collar. I'm going to add another fabric. I'm going to change the color some just so we can easily see the difference. I'm going to call that collar. And I'm going to get a pretty stiff preset. Probably going to use hardware or something like that until I see how things are going to work out. So, get up here and I'm going to get a rectangle instead of a polygon. And we're just going to use one piece of cloth. You can just kind of guess at it here. I'm just going to go halfway between these points and draw it out. It will need to be taller than normal because you're going to double it over. You're going to fold it over as you would a collar. So probably something like that. And then, so we can fold it easily, I'm going to want to put a center line in it with an internal line. And so there, now we're set up for everything except sewing. In order to sewing, we're going to have to put some endpoints on here. So I'm going to put one here and one here. That's so we can sew the front parts of the collar to the front parts of the shirt. And also, we're going to have to split that. Well, you know what? We're not going to split it. Some people pull this down to fit into here, but you don't have to do that. Let's just keep this simple for right now. So we'll just leave this like this. Later on, we'll have to come in here and add a couple of points here that we can sew to, but I'll show you that when we get to it. Now, we're not going to flip horizontally or flip normals or anything like that. We're just going to leave it like this for right now. And if you try to sew it in front of it, you'll actually sew it backwards on these front parts that we're about to sew. And you'll see it'll become a twisted mess. But like right here, where we're going to sew from here to here, if you sew it from the front, it just won't sew right. And that may not look right to you, but it is. If you sew from the front, you have to twist it. For some reason, I'm having trouble getting this to want to click on there. There we go. Don't know what that was about. Now, oh, you know what? We are going to have to go back and separate that, or should I say split that, because of this point right here divides that into two sewing points. So we'll just come here, split, do the uniform split we should have done a while ago. And now that gives us the two sewing points to come in here and sew up this part. get where I can get to it. Now this may or may not turn out too good just right yet, but let's see what happens. Okay, you can see where we're headed with this. And I was talking about sewing up some of these parts here. That's what we'll have to do next. But first off, since we've got our cloth here, let's go ahead and let's change our particle distance to 40. Let's really make it stiff. Let's make it stand up. There we go. Don't worry about the poke through right now. Also, if you were going to put a tie on that you actually wrap around and tie, you'd want to do that before you fold it over. But what we need to do is we need to go ahead and sew these two places up. But we're going to have to, again, add some end points because these are long stretches of cloth here. So what we're going to do is come in, just because we put a line across there doesn't give us an end point. So I'm going to put an end point on each one. You'll probably want to take a little more time than that to get them a little more precise. And then we're going to sew this up. Tighten up our collar. And now you can see what we have so far. Again, this is just because I've got it so stiff on the particle distance. Now let's come over here and grab our fold tool, our line, and let's fold it over. Simulate. See what happens. There we go. Now remember, it's very stiff still. And that looks pretty good, especially once we relax it. Now, if you need to close this gap here a little more, that's pretty simple. Like if you want a smaller knot, or if you're going to do a tie or something like that, what you would do is grab these and pull them out. And of course, I'd try and keep it an equal amount. I'm not going to worry so much about that during the tutorial. But what we're doing is just stretching these out to where they'll come together a little more. And that's what we're getting so far. Cut this back to 30. Run it. I may have to go back a little further. But as you can see, we're getting a very manageable collar there. All you have to do is come in and start adjusting these various lines as to how you want it done. You may want to pull these back a little, or shorten or lengthen this, or shorten it. But that's basically how you control how that fold over part works. Now, another thing I might suggest you do eventually is come in, right click, and cut and sew this into two pieces. That way you can work on it. Like if you decide to come in and put a tie in, it's just a lot easier for you to come in here and be able to select this and just deactivate it and hide it. And then you can come over here and do the things that you need to do with this. Like you can select it and flip the normal to get the inside of the collar going right. And we can go ahead and let's see, let's change that to 20. And of course you could tie your tie around it or something like that too as well. But now let's go ahead and show 3D pattern. Activate. And that inside 20, you see, pushed the outside part back out without having to change the stiffness. Also, if you decide to put a tie in here, you can have this on a lower this on a lower layer, and then you can have your tie on the next layer. This can be on the same layer as the shirt, but then this overlayer can be on a layer above the tie and the shirt. That way you don't have any conflict in it like that. Now let's look at finishing out the front of the shirt. The part that I told you earlier that I usually fake instead of messing with actual buttons and buttoning them and things. We're going to get an internal polyline. We don't want this to be too wide. And this, of course, is personal choice. And we just want to put a line on it. And then we want to come in and cut and sew. And that'll give us a definition there. And now we're ready to just come in and just place buttons manually. Sometimes it can be difficult placing buttons manually when you don't have any cloth directly under it. But all you got to do is just stick with it and keep doing it. So as you can see right there, the first button's a little out of place. So what I do on something like that, probably got the collar getting in the way, is I'll just wait and come down here and get it started. And then I'm going to come over here and get my button edit tool, select this button, Control C to copy, and then Control V to paste, and I'm going to right click, and hopefully I'm going to hit that straight. And then I'm going to tell it how many buttons. As you notice, I'm off just a little, but I'm not going to go back and mess with that. We could have adjusted it with those left and right button deals also. So anyway, it wasn't exactly perfect, but that's how you get the buttons down. And then we can come over here if you want to later. It's easier to see those buttons at that size, and then cut them in half, or whatever size you want, and you can have smaller buttons. And anyway, that's basically how you get around to just getting that part, at least this much, of a dress shirt done. And of course, that's without a tie. Okay, now we'll go ahead and do the sleeves. Move these out of the way. Make sure I'm on the right fabric. Get my polygon tool, and we're going to keep the sleeves very simple. And let's go ahead and put in our line for the cuff by using an internal polygon line. Now let's grab it and symmetric pattern with sewing. Let's just move them up out of the way. Control C, mirror paste. Flip these horizontally. Come over. And I've noticed on sleeves, at least for me, it seems having them a little high is better than having them a little too low, as far as getting them to drape on the arm instead of falling off like they sometimes do. And also getting them close helps a lot also. Let's go ahead and get these sewn up. Okay, run our simulation. All right. Now, if you find these to be too loose or something, all you got to do is go back in and make these just a little shorter, not quite as tall. Now let's go ahead and let's cut in our cuffs by cut and sew, selecting those lines and cut and sew, and that gives us cuffs, which you could also go in there and put buttons on if you wanted to. And you can also probably, since those are so big, we might be able to just come in here and make this part a little smaller. You gotta love that symmetry when you use it, only having to do one side. Let's see if this helps any. Might have been a bit too much. That way you can keep the sleeves loose if that's what you want. That's just one way of doing that, while tightening up the rest of it. Now another thing you can also do, if you want to, depending on if it's needed or not. Most of the times it's not showing, but you can come down here and make these more like a dress shirt. Well, I say you could. I don't know what I'm doing wrong there. There we go. Pulled it past something. Oh, that didn't work at all. That's why. Let's get that back up there. Let's get all of these. And this one. And let's pull them down like that. Boy, it's not wanting to play nice, is it? There we go. And that just gives you more of a dress shirt type of look. And remember to come in here and play with different cloth on the collar and different particle settings. Anyway, that's about all there is to doing a dress shirt. I hope this helps. Now, for a little bonus, let's go ahead and put a tie in here. And what I'm going to do first, just so it makes things easier to work with, is I'm going to come in and I am going to deactivate that pattern and sewing, and then I am going to hide the pattern, hide the 3D pattern. That way all I'm seeing is the inside here. And then I'm going to add another cloth, and we'll turn it red. Now let me go get my rectangle tool, and we'll just start off with a simple little rectangle right up here. Something like that. Then we'll split this line. Uniform split. Pull it down. Now let's go get an internal polygon line. And you decide how big you want your knot to be. Do your line across. Then select your line and cut and sew. Now we're going to come in here and move these in a little. And the same thing over here. Don't do it perfect because ties are not perfect. And there basically is our tie. Now I'm just going to move that over there for now. And this is where you may have to play with it a little in order to get it just like you want it. But what I'm going to do is I am going to tack it. And we're not going to sit here and worry about me tacking it perfect or anything. I'm just going to tack it. Well, I say I am. Come on. I sure seem to have trouble getting things to click today. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I missed one side of it. Probably help if I got down here where I could see. And then I'll go ahead and tack it. Don't want to tack it too high. And like I said, I'm not going to worry about getting it perfect. Something like that right there. And of course it's tacked to the collar over here. Now we'll grab our collar, and so we don't have any trouble, let's just put that on a higher layer. 2. Let's show the pattern. Let's activate it. And there you go. Quick and dirty tie. And of course you can adjust the bottom down here for length if that turns out to be too long or not long enough. And you could go in and use clone over and under to thicken it out by using pressure, negative and positive, just like you would on a comforter or a padded jacket. But that's how you do just a simple tie and collar.